going on, everyone? So NBA basketball is officially here, and I could not be more excited, as I'm sure many of you are, especially if you're watching this video. It is an NBA video. Today's games are the Lakers versus the Nuggets at 4:30 p.m., and then you have the Suns and the Warriors, and it should be just a fun just slate for day one. I mean, you have the defending champion Nuggets facing the Lakers, who they beat in the Western Conference Finals. A lot of bad blood there, especially with all the talking. And then, of course, the Warriors and the Suns. You got Kevin Durant taking on his old team. Warriors and Suns should be a high-powered, offensive-type game. Warriors are without Draymond Green. We'll see how it goes. But then the following day is when things really start picking up, and we have just a large slate of games. We have like 12 games or something like that. This season should be very entertaining. There are a lot of teams that you can really make an argument for. There's some surprise teams most likely, but I want to dive into various teams and kind of do a breakdown of the season. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, so let me know down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So getting into it, obviously with the Eastern Conference, start there. The Milwaukee Bucks and Boston Celtics seem to be, in my opinion, head and shoulders above everyone else. I think these two are the most likely to come out of the Eastern Conference, and I don't think anyone would be surprised if either of these teams won the NBA championship. I definitely think these are going to be two of a handful of teams that are going to be legitimate contenders, like a team that you look at and go, okay, yeah, like they can win the NBA championship. Obviously, Boston Celtics went and got Kristaps Porzingis. They went and got Drew Holiday, especially after losing Marcus Smart. That was a huge pickup. I do have concerns about the Celtics and their depth, as well as just their mental toughness. I don't think that has really changed. I think you can make an argument that it's probably gotten worse. Losing Marcus Smart, who was their vocal leader. He was like the extension of the coach. He was the guy that was the toughness for the Boston Celtics. Drew Holiday is going to be able to fill some of that role, at least on the basketball court, but is he going to be able to take over that role once we get into the actual season and the playoffs and kind of be that vocal leader? Does somebody else step up? Is Jason Tatum going to stop disappearing in fourth quarters of games? Joe Mazzulla, is he going to be able to coach well enough in order to lead this team? There's a lot of question marks with them. The Milwaukee Bucks, they obviously went and got Damian Lillard, which was massive for them, especially with all the pressure that Giannis was putting on Milwaukee. It's nice that they went and did that. Obviously, Damian Lillard fixes a lot of holes for the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Primarily a consistent go-to scorer that on a nightly basis can take a lot of pressure off of Giannis to have to go and deliver on that side of the basketball. He also provides clutch go-to scoring down the stretch, which is something Milwaukee really needed. They were kind of relying on Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Now you got a proven guy in Damian Lillard. Top of that, kind of sets everyone in their natural order. You got, Giannis, Dame, Chris Middleton, and then, of course, Brook Lopez. But again, Milwaukee, I have concerns about their depth, especially throughout the course of the regular season. If Damian Lillard or Giannis miss any time, Milwaukee is probably in very big trouble. And also, defensively, how do they look defensively, especially if they're starting Malik Beasley alongside Damian Lillard? I just have concerns that kind of, starts to be an issue and teams just kind of blow by them. And then that puts a ton of pressure on Giannis as well as the Brook Lopez. And although they were the best defensive front court in the league last year, they also had a guy in Drew Holiday who was a great point of attack defensive guy and really took a lot of pressure off of that. Is Chris Middleton going to be able to adjust? And then also, is Damian Lillard and Giannis going to be able to figure out that 1-2 pairing? Right? Just because they're on the team together and just because they're talking like Damian Lillard, he's the point guard. It becomes a different thing when you're actually on the basketball court. But regardless, I think that these two teams are just head and shoulders above the Eastern Conference. And, you never know. Anything could happen, as we saw with Miami. But I do think that these two teams are most likely to come out of the East. The Sixers are going to be a storyline as long as James Harden is on the Sixers. Kind of dive into this briefly. I kind of don't know where to slate Philly. If James Harden shows up, buys in, and plays the way that we know he's capable of playing, then I think Philly will be right there. I think Philly will be really good. I think that they'll be the 2 or 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. I think that they have a chance. I think they have a real shot. Problem is that Damian Lillard or James Harden has shown in the past that, hey, I don't want to be here. I won't play. If I have to play, I will do whatever I can to just play as poor as possible, right? And start sabotaging things. I mean, we saw what he did with Houston. So that's kind of my concern there, as well as like what James Harden is Philly going to get. If they get the James Harden of like the end of Houston, Philly's cooked, in my opinion. If they don't and they actually get a bought in, hey, as long as I'm here, I'm going to show up, James Harden, Philly will be pretty good. So we'll see how that goes there. But outside of that, like you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference teams, and it's like, who's going to be the standouts this year? Like, I still think the Cavs, the Knicks, I think those two teams will still be very good. I think the Nets and the Heat will be in that like middle of the pack, very likely. And then I think like surprise teams that could really kind of shock some people would be like teams that come to mind is like Orlando, right? I mean, Orlando's had a stretch every year the last like 2 or 3 years where for like a month they've been the best team on both sides of the basketball, and they've had like extended win streaks and stuff. Now again, it's a small portion of the overall NBA season. Can they finally put that together this year, right? And potentially be a legit playoff team? Does Paolo Banchero kind of take that next step, that next leap for Orlando after playing with Team USA? That's the team that comes to mind, the Indiana Pacers. I think that they're kind of in a position where they actually want to start winning some games and they want to make some noise. Again, I don't think either of these teams are contenders. Same thing with like a team like Atlanta, right? Do they kind of figure it out? They finally got off of John Collins, which I never really understood, but nonetheless, I think that that's something that it was just bad blood between both of them. So do they kind of take those strides? Washington, I don't like. Washington's that other team that like I don't really know where to place. Like I could see them fighting for a play-in spot, but I could also see them being actually surprisingly decent. Right? I don't think they're going to be very good defensively, but I think offensively, especially if like Washington just hires a couple baddies to sit in the front row of every game, right? Then you're going to get a 40-point-a-game Jordan Poole, right? You'll have like Michael Jordan level Jordan Poole, and not Wizards Michael Jordan, like Bulls Michael Jordan, which would be surprising. But I do like, on a serious note, like Washington, I do think could make some noise in just the sense of like being a fun, young, hungry, high-powered offense type team. But again, I don't see them really going anywhere. As far as the Eastern Conference goes, I think it's going to be pretty clear cut, right? I think it's just Boston and Milwaukee. Philly will be interesting, and then outside of that, it'll just be like a bunch of like teams that if the chips kind of fall their way, maybe they win a couple hands. If the cards fall their way, they win a couple hands. Chicago, I think, will be looking to sell the farm come trade deadline. It's kind of my thoughts in the Eastern Conference. But moving on to the Western Conference, Denver. We haven't had a repeat champion since the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant. So is this going to be the year? Can Denver actually pull it off and go back-to-back? Personally, I don't think so. Look, I think Denver's going to be very good this year. But I think it took, like, there was a lot of dominoes that kind of, like, fell into place for them. Like, it just felt like it was their year. And sometimes it's just how it goes, right? They got their first ever NBA championship, and it just felt like they did that in a year where, all right, like, this feels like something that it just, the cards are playing out perfectly for them. And, I don't know if that same thing happens. Teams are, of course, going to be gunning for them because they are the defending champions. I think the loss of Bruce Brown as well as Jeff Green is going to hurt them more than people think. But in general, they're still going to be very good, and I don't think anyone will be surprised. But I do think they kind of take a bit of a step back, right? Like, and I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, they're going to go from winning an NBA championship to like a play-in team. But I do think they go from like maybe being the 1 seed last year to like maybe like the 3 or the 4 this year. And it's like they have these stretches where they just seem to struggle, but you know that they're still going to be very good. They're going to be a tough out. And, you're going to have to actually beat this team, right? So, Denver is I think is going to be very good, but I don't personally, and again, this is a discussion, so I want to hear your opinions, but I don't personally see them, one, coming out of the West this year, and two, winning the NBA championship again. But moving on is, the Phoenix Suns and the Lakers, I think, are the most kind of intriguing teams because both of these teams on paper look like absolute contenders. And Phoenix and the Lakers kind of for different reasons, right? Phoenix just, they have a powerhouse of a team, right? And if you just go strictly on paper, give Phoenix the NBA championship right now, right? But we've seen like teams have super team. I mean, Lakers, right? Every other year, the Lakers on paper have like the greatest teams ever assembled, and it just doesn't work out as much as they would like, right? So Phoenix, can they figure it out? I think the issue are like their lack of playmaking, I think, is going to hurt. I do think they did a better job than I expected for them to kind of fill out their roster, but I still think that they lack blue chip level depth, right? And that could end up arising and being a problem. Defensively, how do they look? Also, you have basically your main 3 guys all have been heavily injury prone. Devin Booker, not so much heavily, but he's dealt with some injuries lately. And like that could be a problem, right? Like if Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal miss any significant time, the Phoenix Suns could be fighting for a play-in spot, right? Because is Devin Booker and Nurk going to be enough to carry them in the juggernaut that is the Western Conference? I don't know, but you never know. They could. And then from the Lakers side, their contention, in my opinion, is kind of predicated on their depth. Right? They just have a ridiculously deep team. They got a ton of size. They actually can shoot the basketball now. They're probably going to be number 1 defensively. If not, they're going to be probably top 3 to 5 at worst. So they're going to be very good on the defense side of the ball. If their offense flows as good as it did in preseason, then they're going to be probably a top 5 to 7 offense. You still have 2 top 10 players in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And, this is a team that if they can kind of put it all together, very similar to the Phoenix Suns, right? If these 2 teams could put it all together, I really think one of these 2 teams are very likely to come out of the Western Conference. I won't pick just because I'm sure whoever I pick, is going to sound like biasness because, if you're familiar with me and my channels, then I'm a Laker fan. So I'll leave it at that. But let me know your opinions down in the comments. But like the other sort of thing to look out for is like that big move, right? Like, talking about James Harden in the Eastern Conference. He obviously wants to go to the Clippers. The Clippers are kind of having this back and forth. If the Clippers are struggling, right, and we get through like 15, 20 games in the season and like the Clippers are like the, 6th seed or something like that, do they kind of panic a little bit and go, hey, we need to get James Harden? Or like, what if Kawhi gets hurt, right? Or like Paul George? Like, what if one of them gets hurt? Do the Clippers kind of panic and go, okay, we need to go get James Harden to kind of carry us through the season? It's definitely something to keep in mind. Again, I don't want to go too much into it. I've talked plenty about this. There's plenty of videos on the channel if you want to hear more like updates and insight into the James Harden drama, I guess. But in general, it's just something to look out for. Like if they get James Harden, personally, I'm not sold. Like if the Clippers get James Harden, I don't think they're going to be that much better, but you never know. I mean, look, James Harden, he's still a 20-12 guy last year, led the league in assists, right? Russ, do you bring Russ off the bench? Now you got Russ off the bench. Again, on paper, it's like, that's ridiculous. But in reality, I just don't know if that translates the way that, because James Harden isn't the guy he once was. Russ isn't, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard are still. It's just, for me, the Clippers are one of those teams, like, I just don't believe in until they prove to me otherwise. Just kind of how I feel about that. But, same thing with like the Western Conference. Like to me, there's a lot more teams. Like I don't think the West is going to be as cut and dry as like the East will, right? Like I said, I think just Boston, Milwaukee are kind of head and shoulders above everyone else. But like you look at the West, right? And again, I think the top 3 teams again, in my opinion, to come out of the Western Conference are the Suns, the Lakers, and the Nuggets. So Suns, Lakers, Nuggets, I think are the three teams that are, in my opinion, not head and shoulders above everyone else, but like I think that they are, they have like a gap, right? But I do think some of these young teams may try to like make that noise, or like the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Suns. I think that they're going to care more about just getting into the playoffs healthy as opposed to like actually getting like the 1 or 2 seed, something like that. I'm not saying that they won't try to get that. Obviously, if they can, they will. But for example, like let's say there's like 5 games left and they're 3 games out of, the 1 seed, either of the teams, right? Like if they were going to rest their stars for those 5 games or like the last 3 games or whatever to be healthy for the playoffs, I think they do it regardless. Or I just think that they don't look at it and go, okay, we need to like really push ourselves to go get that 1 seed. I think they'll look at it as like, hey, if we get it, we get it, right? As opposed to like actively just pushing your chips to the table to go get that seeding. But beyond that, I mean, I'm not sold on the Warriors personally. I think that they had a clear direction they needed to go, and I felt like they kind of went the opposite. But the Warriors are the Warriors, right? It's like Tom Brady with the Patriots. Like every year you think they're cooked, and then all of a sudden they're winning another chip. So I'm not going to say that I think the Warriors are out yet, but I do think, again, they're a little farther away. I still don't think Sacramento's there. I think that they're going to be a fun, exciting team like they were last year, but I don't think they're there yet. Memphis's team is like falling apart. They're going to be in trouble. I don't even know where to put them, right? Like, are they going to be able to weather Ja Morant? The loss of Steven Adams, I think, really hurts. Memphis is really small now. On top of that, even if Ja does come back, like how long does it take for him to kind of get NBA ready? Because he can't even like work out at the facilities and stuff. So he's going to have like a little bit of a struggle. Like Minnesota and the Pelicans, like if they can be healthy and kind of work their stuff out, they could be interesting. They could make some noise. Oklahoma City, I mean, if Chet it continues to display what we've seen so far, like OKC could be a pretty scary team, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if they shock somebody in the playoffs, right? So again, there's a lot of teams that I think can really stand out, and I think that you can make an argument for like a handful of teams to be that surprise. One team that I think a lot of people might think is going to be good that I don't believe they will be is Dallas, right? Well, one, Luka there's no timetable for his return, last report that we got for him health-wise. But even if he was healthy, like I think Dallas did a terrible job filling out the roster, right? Like you look at what the Phoenix Suns did, I thought they did great. And they had even less to work with. And yet I just think Dallas, I'm not sold on Dallas. I think they're at best a play-in team. But that's my opinion, and as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? How you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.